Good afternoon. Here we are at Shop Talks. Final stretch here, last Shop Talk, the one I am actually the most excited about. So, I want to thank our sponsors, Impressions, from the Ink Kitchen. Free information is brought to you by our other sponsors here, Alpha Broder, Los Angeles Apparel, Hearst Solutions, Lane 7, Omniprint, and NASDAR. And we are going to talk about DTF. Direct to film. Direct to film. Actually, there's different names for it, right? Somebody said the real thing is direct transfer film. I don't know. Whatever it is, people are calling it DTF. I have Josh Ellsworth from Stalls and Transfer Express. Got Stan Banks from T-Shirt Hustle. We're going to talk about DTF. We're going to talk a little bit about it. Josh has some samples to pass around, which are pretty exciting. I got a sample to show even, right?
I know.
Footwear. And then we'll have questions, and then they'll be around for a few minutes after if you have other questions, if you're shy. These are all on YouTube. I think there's 129 Shop Talks up there. Free information. All right. So what's DTF?
So direct to film is a inkjet process of printing just the design you need onto a film carrier with ink, right? And so for those of you that have been in the heat transfer world for a while, you're probably used to cutting and weeding or printing and cutting and weeding. Well, all that's gone. You're probably used to outlines around your transfers. Well, that's gone. And so with direct to film, we're actually jetting down CMYK ink, sometimes an expanded color gamut, backing it with white, running it through a powdering machine or jetting adhesive on the back, depending on what machine you look at to produce it, and then curing it into a dryer to just make a heat transfer that's ready to be applied. That's the cliff notes on what DTF is.
That was good. That was really good. Must have rehearsed that one. Yeah, nobody likes weeding. Some people like weed, but nobody likes weeding. So it's a real advantage of DTF. So, Stan, we want to talk a little bit about just the advantages of transfers. I was talking to Josh earlier. I think DTF, from Stalls, from Supercolor, it's like flip things that people are accepting transfers. And I know you're all about transfers. You just want to talk about transfers a little bit and how great it is as a way to get into the business and know if you're making money and all that?
Yeah, so transfers made this whole thing more accessible to everybody at home, right? So when you think about DTF, you got two options. You can make it or you can buy it. And if you make it, then you got a whole nother R&D and research and process that you got to learn about. But the transfer buying part of this allows everybody to get full color artwork now. In this case, when it comes to DTF, getting full color artwork, that you can print on anything from garments to shoes to wood to anything that you may need to print it on, and just get straight to the process of making money. The beauty about transfers to me is I can have anybody come off the street and have them, and I'll be confident to leave them alone in 30 minutes to walk away and be operating the press and be producing income in my shop or anywhere for that matter. I've done transfers at other jobs, in basements, at events, different places like that. On the other hand, when it comes to the knowledge base, all of this equipment, like screen print is an actual trade. It used to be taught in schools. So the knowledge base that you have to get beyond just pulling the squeegee, which I think is the easy part, is something that you have to take time to perfect. So I think maybe 3 months
Guilty
might
as
be
charged.
It might take 3 months if you come into the right learning environment before I think you're actually able to do everything on your own, because I can teach you how to pull a squeegee, I can show you how to coat a screen, but that process is something that you have to perfect over time, and it's not as simple as it is. And I think people forget the learning that goes into it. And at the end of the day, the way I look at it is how I want to spend my time. And then, I get paid to print shirts. Yeah, you can build in all of this overhead, all of this other stuff into your pricing. But at the end of the day, we get paid to deliver a shirt to a customer. And at the end of the day, I don't think customers, for the most part, don't care what it is. As long as it lasts, it looks good. And like you said, these transfers now, the stigma of heat transfer, of iron-on really has changed. and it's been acceptable across the industry now.
That's funny you say that. When our first shop talks, Jacob Edwards, he's a real visionary. He's like, people don't give a shit how you put it on there. They just want what they want on the shirt they want, and they want it to stay there for a while. And I don't think they actually question that. Can we share how many heat presses went in, what percentage of your heat presses went into homes last year?
Yeah, so when we look at the last 12 to 18 months, 97% of heat presses went to a residential address, right? And so that just shows you.
And you don't, I'll plug his thing. He's not selling a hobby heat press. This is a professional grade heat press, and 97% went into homes. I guess that shows you where the home-based business.
Is there a number attached to that? Like a rough number?
A rough number of what? The other side's 3%.
No. A rough number of presses that went out.
Let's just say a lot.
Yeah, I think today, you know, especially with the pandemic, man, it went bananas, and he's saying 97%. And the reason I was asking what the number is because it's like, what's the lead time on getting a press these days, right? Especially some of the more expensive ones. So it will be a lot more. A lot of people are in line waiting for presses still. So, you know, if you're in the business, it's a good business to be in. The margins are there. You know, it's enough work for everybody. You're out, you're learning, and you can literally make money out of your house now, thanks to products, you know, like what Saws makes.
All right, so I'm kind of excited because, well, I'll give a little touting of your products. So, I mean, I'm all about screen printing. My company's won like every award for screen printing. My friend Paul Radulis owns Liquid Blue. He printed these Ukraine shirts over here. He's one of the best printers. We're actually getting DTF transfers for our online stores, for difficult substrates. I have a customer, it's a big customer, it was a tiny order. That's the worst situation. You have to do it for him. A raincoat that nothing wanted to stick to. I bought your transfers and it took care of my problem. Like, besides, when you have a big business, there's not just money to be made, there's problems to be solved. And it seems like they solve a lot of problems. I'm gonna show this off. So my friends at Los Angeles Apparel are like, can you figure out how to print these? And you know, usually it was sort of taking a couple of weeks. They gave me a big bag of sandals. Josh did these about an hour ago after I gave them to him about an hour and a half ago. So, like, it solves a lot of problems. And, you know, you can make money and deal with a lot of problems with these now.
Yeah, and let's float one of those around if you don't mind, because I think I was intimidated by this when Rick dropped it off an hour ago. He said, hey, you think you can try this over on your press and see if the direct-to-film transfers work? And I was like, yeah, I can try anything, right? We'll see if we melt it. And in the past, we actually had a big soccer brand approach us and gave us the first idea. They wanted to decorate cleats. And for that soccer brand, we actually designed a special attachment for the press so you could load a pair of cleats on. And these are, you know, multi-$100 cleats that we're decorating for high-end soccer gear. And so we were able to kind of do the testing and have that foundational knowledge through trial and error and ruining a lot of returned cleats that came back to them to figure out like what temperatures work, what accessories are needed, where it melts at, how it all works. But I had never tried DTF before on these products. And so you bringing that over, I grabbed a Tagless Transfer. You'll see the design's not very cool. It's just what we had. But it shows you the level of detail, the unlimited color, and the customization potential onto unique item, unique fabric, unique location.
So I mean, especially applied at low temperatures, right? So what's the lowest temperature you can apply at, and like roughly?
Yeah, so you need to break the rules. So the application temperature says 290 degrees for 12 to 15 seconds for a t-shirt. Well, I know that material that I'm passing around on that slide is gonna soften up with the adhesive. And so in this particular case, I kept it at the 290 degrees, but I put a special cover pad on top of it. It's called a flexible application pad. That's how I decorated handbags in the past, and I know that would prevent them from melting. And so I laid that on, I applied it for 20 seconds at a really light pressure because I didn't want to embed the carrier mark or damage the item. And so I guess what I'd like you to take from this as a decorator, trying things that other people aren't willing to try is going to create products and space for you to earn a lot of profit and a lot of business. So go deep into these verticals, try new things, experiment with the products that you have, and be willing to fail. And I think you'll be a more profitable company in the long term for it.
I think that, I mean, Stan, you deal with a lot of people that want to have like a brand and develop it. Seems like it's a great tool for that too. And maybe when they're making their brand, they don't just make t-shirts, right?
Yeah, so one of the things about like brands and different things like that, just artwork today is like the old way. Like if you look at companies' logos, it was really, really simple. Target had a Target sign, but every logo was just as simple as the Shop Talk logo here. It's just one color, and they just went their way. But now the way that everybody's a graphic designer without the education around it, like we think back to, hey, I'm gonna design this in one color because we think about how we're gonna be charged when we're getting that made or printed. And today is like, no, we just want to put as much stuff as we possibly can. So being able to print photorealistic, being able to print unlimited colors and gradients has been like that's the game-changing aspect to what we could never do. Before now, it was like Nina inkjet paper. Eco-solvent printers really cost too much before to be in 20, and it's been a huge gap in what we've been able to offer people as far as the quality goes. So when you think about a clothing brand, when that thing goes out of the door, I don't know if I want to put a Nina inkjet transfer in there, and you put it in the wash, and next thing you know is your design is like navy tinted because the jeans done bled on it. So that quality that goes into having something that's able to be washed and going through all these certifications and wash tests and different things like that. I think you guys are Nike. I don't know what the names of them are, but the Nike
RSL compliant. Yep.
Yeah. So being able to meet certain quality standards really matters today when you're delivering a product and you can stand by and you know that that customer is going to take it, they're going to wash it, they're going to wear it, and they're going to feel good about what it is that they're wearing, and you're going to be feel good giving it to them and not worry about them customers coming back because you decided to get something that was iron on or something like that.
All right. So where are we at with your DTF, and where are we going? You got some samples there?
Yeah. So, and again, the unlimited color, unlimited detail. So I think passing these around so you can see how the transfer actually should look when you make it or when you receive it is helpful, because we have this clear film carrier that we're able to lay on. So today we're at unlimited color, basically with the CMYK color palette for most places that I'm looking at. We're pretty good on the detail. I think we'll get more consistent on the machines being able to be adopted maybe in a desktop format for small businesses. But right now, I still think the machine space is wide open and evolving, and there's a lot of manufacturers chasing the latest and the greatest DTF printer. So that's the space that we're in today. And so the reality is, even at a manufacturing operation the scale of Stahl's or any transfer company, odds are we have 10 printers, and out of those 10 printers, 5 or 6 may be running, and the other 4 are offline for maintenance. So I still feel like there's a lot of things to be worked out, and we're kind of in that early adopter stage where we're developing or kind of flying the plane as we're building it, right? And so that's where we're at. So
I know in one of our talks, someone spoke about all the adhesives, right? There's like, you've got a adhesive that works on a lot of things, but there's something like 30 adhesives possible to be used, right?
Yeah, and
so that'll evolve over time too, right?
Yeah, the adhesives, I mean, look, people are going to want to go to water repellent jackets. They want to go to sublimated soccer jerseys and have it block the dye migration. So there's going to need to be a dye blocking adhesive. You're going to want to be able to apply stretchable fabrics like compression gear. And so I think you'll see, whether it's in the powdered adhesive changes or the jettable adhesive changes, we'll have to have an assortment of transfer styles based on the garment or the job that you want to complete. And right now I feel like we're kind of in the infant stages of that. And now that we have the platform, people will be developing on top of it to have more flexibility.
Right. So what else you got for show and tell here?
Yeah, show and tell. So, this one shows off a puffer jacket. And so this is, I always tell people, go for the high end. There's a million people doing t-shirts. So not that you can't make t-shirts a part of your business, but when I can decorate high-end apparel, I make more profit for my time, because it takes every garment about a couple minutes.
And
right?
it's the same amount of work.
Yeah, same amount of work. So this one, Travis Matthew, which is a really high-end golf brand.
So the thing was, you used to not be able to decorate some of these things. Like a puffer jacket, the transfers did not look like screen printing, and so at least my customers would not accept them. And these, you really can't tell the difference.
Yeah, you get all of the color on a single layer, right? And I think that's the biggest difference. So we're not layering vinyl, we're not weeding and spending a lot of time there, and we're not pressing at super high temps like traditional plastisol transfers of old, which
Right.
really damage a lot of items.
Yeah.
So we got another sample here of fleece. So you'll see a lot of different logo locations. That's another way to increase your profit on every piece that you sell.
You know, I actually try to convince my speakers here not to give sales pitches, but I can give sales pitches for them because I'm special. Anyway, there's a great video that Stahl's put out, I think like a week ago, or is it Transfer Express, about tripping out garments, basically. It's the story of like taking a baseball jersey, using their online tool to make the art, and buying gang sheets would save you money because they don't have to be cut up. And they had like a, you know, at the hem, on the front and the back label, and the sleeve, all in one transfer sheet, where traditionally people might have bought that one sheet with only the front. And instead, it had the whole 9 yards. And it was a very impressive piece when they were done, and without really almost any cost except for the 10 seconds to apply it or whatever, how many seconds to apply each of the other ones. Yeah. So it's really great. Transfers are great for odd locations, honestly. And do you think, it seems like the machines are coming down in price and ability to do it. A lot of people will probably hybrid be making some and buying larger quantities perhaps, that kind of thing. You see that happening?
On the machines specifically?
Yeah, some of that maybe somebody might, and also you can, if you have an existing DTG machine like we do, we can make DTF transfers now.
Yeah, yes.
But we don't want to make 1,000.
Right, no, not on a sheet fed format. Your square feet per hour is just going to be detrimental. But if you were doing like really small tagless transfers, that's a perfect application on that panel size, or small left chest logos.
Or we got the wrong transfers in and we got to do them today.
yeah, the oh crap moment when you got to get it done.
But I was kind of shocked, like the turn time on like Supercolor has DTF transfers. You've got them. The turn time's fast now, right? I mean, I thought like we would have to order them a week or two in advance. What's the turn time?
Well, you guys all got spoiled by Amazon, so you want things like yesterday, right? So turn time from Stahl's is what I can speak to is order by 6 p.m. Eastern time, ships next business day. So we call them lightning fast on these style of transfers. And then I think generally most of the full color options with reputable suppliers like us in Supercolor are 3 days or less on turn time across many of the products.
I mean, I think that Supercolor made their thing on that. Everything was fast, right?
Yeah. So same pretty much. Next day, shipping in by the cutoff time, and you're good to go.
So you got a home-based business, you got a regular business. That kind of turn time actually is almost faster than making something yourself, really.
Yeah, and I think it's the
quantity,
right? It's the overhead. So when I look at a lot of these small businesses where it is startups, right, or operating out of your home, and maybe it's a side hustle, that's kind of what you base your brand off of, is helping people make that successful. In order to make that jump, there's two things you really have to watch. One is you have to pay yourself in order to replace yourself. And two, you have to really consider overhead, right? And I always tell people your ego is not your amigo when it comes to overhead. You don't need to own all the equipment in the world. You don't need to do everything yourself. And you don't need to have this big fancy production space or retail space. You want to keep the business lean. And that's my favorite thing about heat printing as a technology, is you can really have the best of the best equipment for around $5,000 and be doing quality results of any major factory or shop.
Yeah, I think to add to that, like I said earlier, it's a make or buy. So do you want to make it or do you want to buy it? So if you look at like the transformation of DTG and where it's came to now, but it was a long time to get here. I think the technology that was been able to be changed a little bit from that and applied to DTF right now is what allowed this process to be a little bit faster, but it's still very, very young in the process. I think it really kind of started to take off. Its infancy was 2020. So we're like 2 years into this thing right now, and it's gonna change. And I think when you're considering making or buying, you wanna consider where you wanna spend your time. Maintenance, buying, how much money you're gonna put out today on this printer, but You know, tomorrow is going to be something new and changing because the technology hasn't really been caught up. A lot of this stuff has been converted, which is perfectly fine, and they're making do, but consider the print heads that you're able to use right now weren't made for the inks that is going through them. And so once somebody gets behind that, that's when I say I would much rather invest. But you got companies like Stahls, like Supercolor, like some of these other transfer companies who are doing the R&D, they're doing all the research. You know, you talk about all the different powders, adhesives. This is like chemistry. This is all of these science projects. And if you were a scientist, that was your field, then perfectly fine. But you got to figure out what's the right ink, what's the right this based on your setup. And it becomes one of these learning processes that over time you put more time into what you're doing and you're actually using to produce it, especially like, you know, like I said, my degree's in computer science. I can build computers, I can fix them, but I don't necessarily want to spend my time doing that. At the end of the day, like I said earlier, we get paid to print shirts. You know what I mean? And if you're spending your time doing maintenance, you can't find your print head because you done blew a print head or something went wrong, and you get into the forums if you want to get into investing into this, not to scare anybody away. But, you know, some of those things that go on in these forums when printers and people want to throw them out the window is like, I'm going to wait it out until somebody gets behind the technology, that it can be a system. So now when I'm running, or I can get the right support and I don't have to wait and guess around who can help me.
Speaking of systems, so it seems like more and more with DTF transfers, with the way things are printed, with digital presses, that with the way embroidery can be mechanized, that more and more producing the actual thing is the least of the problems. It's like, how do you get from the person's idea to the art that's required? Then how do you know which shirt that came into your shop goes with which design, and then where the hell does it go when it's done? Like, are you working on all that stuff? Because the actual making of it seems like the least of the problems these days, you know?
So the answer is yes and no. So I do agree with you that there's this huge space for production shop-like technology that's out there for large factories at extremely high prices to be accessible to small to mid-sized businesses. So I feel like it's this open space for somebody to innovate something that works for that. Because
did you see that Jerry Jones, Dallas Cowboys bought Printavo and Inksoft?
I did see
Maybe there's
that.
something
I did see
there.
that, yeah.
So they're either going to ruin it, and you know, or they're going to invest enough money maybe that little guys can buy it. I don't know.
Well, I hope they don't ruin it, because those are two strong companies, and hopefully they get stronger together.
Yeah, and the Cowboys suck.
Hey. Calm this down now. I don't know where we're going. Shop talks.
But I do think there's an opportunity, and so I think what I would say for a small decorator today is just thinking through your processes and systems and making sure you have documentation. So even if you don't have a system in place that automates it, having proper documentation, proper training, and proper operating procedures will make it a lot easier for yourself as you scale and grow, because eventually, once your volume picks up, it will break, right? Just like all of us vendors experience when inventory became an issue, all of our back order management systems broke, and we wish we would have planned ahead for all of those things. So just plan ahead and look out into the future growth of your business, because I think there's a common misconception that heat transfers are just for small businesses. I'll tell you, with direct-to-film transfers, there's already customers, one customer in particular, that has purchased over 250,000 transfers, right? And this is a large shop, so this technology is something that's being used at scale, because we're really reinventing e-commerce in the retail rack. We're not just figuring out a way to decorate a dozen shirts anymore.
Yeah, it's getting a lot more like broad, right? And I think a lot of big companies are using it, because think about it. Some of the stuff that people want, especially if you want consistency across a bunch of different garments, especially high-end garments, a hat, a polo, this, that. In order to get consistency, you can't embroider everything and you can't screen print everything. And if you want that consistency, this is the way to get it done. And it's not just being used by small businesses like Josh said. Big companies are actually using this product. Some of the brands, you know, I know everybody here goes in the stores and they're filling everything in the stores. You see heat transfer vinyl on stuff in stores. You see brick vinyl in stores. If you grab a hoodie or something like that, you look in the inside, how they put this on? They're heat transferring everything, and these are coming out in high volume places. If you find something in H&M that is a brick vinyl, they're coming out of high volume shops or, you know, wherever they're being manufactured at. So it is acceptable today, and now we have access to it. And then to speak to what he talked about systems, man, I've been trying to fill this void or trying to find the technology that works for small businesses, because a lot of this stuff is very, very expensive, and we need something that, yeah, definitely it's a space for somebody to come in and insert themselves, but it is a void as far as management, as far as order processing for small businesses, that when we do get something, it's going to be awesome. Hopefully it'll be awesome, but it is long overdue.
I mean, speaking of what you're saying, I mean, I know one of the bigger online retail places using DTF for their online stores fulfillment. I was in one of the biggest decorating facilities in the Midwest. They had DTF machine and buying transfers. I know one of the biggest sports, they were doing some of the biggest sports companies. They had DTF transfers in there, and they're all about them. So it seems like it's really a wave, whether it's home-based or big. I have a simple question. What's the shelf life?
So we say 1 year because we're conservative, because you guys don't store them right. So if you store them correctly, meaning in not extremely high heat, not extremely cold temperatures, so not out in the garage, and you want to keep them sealed in a container or a Ziploc bag with the silica gel packs to keep the moisture out, you'll find that the shelf life can be many years. However, most vendors will guarantee a 1 year shelf life on the transfers.
Yeah, I've done 18 months. So I had got some transfers early in 2020, and I just pulled them out just for a video on them out first logos that I got it printed with something. So if you store them right, it definitely will last.
All right, maybe do some questions. Or did you have other things you want to say first?
No, I love questions.
All right.
Questions are good.
Who's got questions about transfers, about life, whatever?
So my question is, I heard that Amazon is going to try to get into that space.
Okay, you heard that Amazon is going to get into that space. You know, any topic here, you could have heard that, because they are getting into about every space. So what do you think about that? The question is, you heard that Amazon's getting into the transfer space.
Yeah, so I don't think you should be intimidated, and they probably are, and they probably are already, is the reality. The key is you have unique value with what you can deliver regardless of your business. It's all uncovering who your target market is, how you can structure your business, and all the money that you spend, whether that's in people, overhead, marketing, and sales, to be able to communicate that value proposition or that unique value. And there are different ways that you're going to be able to create product that beat Amazon. And so it's your job to figure out how you not only beat Amazon, but beat every competitor that you have. So I wouldn't be afraid if I were you.
It's going to be relationship. It's going to be art.
I think like Amazon is what aspect will they get into it in, right? They already doing fulfillment. It's not like they're already doing DTG fulfillment with a bunch of designs on the internet. So they're probably going to be getting into it to put DTF onto things, and it's already pre-made, pre-designed. So unless they come out with a custom-made type of situation where now they're doing that, which we can't say if they will or they won't, it won't necessarily be, at least affect us in the immediate future from that standpoint, because like you said, we add the personal touch to whatever's going on. We give them what they want. They're not coming to us per se to buy our designs unless you got that kind of brand, but we're able to give them what they want versus you shopping and browsing through. How Amazon fulfills their orders isn't, it's no effect to us. They're already doing it.
And they got no soul. Nobody wants that. What good is life without soul? Any other questions? Everybody knows everything about transfers. This is an amazing group.
All topics about heat transfers.
No question.
Actually, next time we have shop talks, we're going to have a contest also. Any dumb question, they get a free shirt.
So I wanted to
Actually,
ask.
there are no dumb questions.
I wanted to add something earlier to the part where you said about buying, like the volume of what you buy. So if you making it, like a lot of people are starting out just buying transfers, and then they're looking at how much they're spending on transfers and deciding, you know what, I'm spending $15,000 a month or $1,500, literally 15 grand a month. Some companies are spending on transfers, and they're like, now I'm going to bring this in. For the guy with a desktop printer, it's taking 8 to 12 to 15 minutes to print a transfer. If I got to print 100 of them to put on shirts, it's not going to be the best option for me to do it myself. So, you know, you go to a company, you outsource the transfers in. It's about your process and what works for you, right? All of these things fit. You can buy the machines and you can go through that. You got a downtime, you got to call the company. You got to have, you know, all of these tools around you so that you can keep your business flowing and making money. At the end of the day, as long as we're all making money, that is what's most important, because that's what's going to drive the industry forward.
I mean, you have pretty good quality control, I would say. And so also when you're buying them from one of these companies, you're buying consistency as well. That's tough to do in a small shop where you might not be able to control the climate, or you don't have a say in what kind of adhesive you got or what have you.
Well, and I think one of the most important points is where we're at on the technology. Like if we're talking specifically about direct-to-film, you could buy a printer today, and maybe that makes sense for you. Maybe you're technical, and it could make sense for your shop. But the whole one-size-fits-all and everybody should own one is just not the case. It wasn't the case with any technology that we've seen at this show for my 20 years here. But what you really have to be careful of, in my opinion, is early technologies, because as a small business, you're going to have to continue to invest in new printers along your journey if you're going to keep up. Or you could be quickly left behind because your printer doesn't have the best finish and feel and die block and stretch, or the things that you're looking for. So know that every year you come here, there's going to be a new, latest, greatest model. And so you got to be committed to that and understand that there's a cost to depreciate that equipment over a period of time that you have to cover. So although the cost of materials may seem cheaper, we still have costs for the labor and the equipment.
It does get tough. Like in the old days, you could buy a big automatic screen printing machine and know that maybe you didn't make the best choice, but you could make money with that for 20 years, at least 10, 15 years. You buy the wrong digital machine now, it's a boat anchor, 2 years. Really, it's been tough. It's very tough to make those decisions, actually.
Yeah, and I don't know, Stan, you're probably with me on it, but like, I love direct-to-garment printing as a technology, but the reality is when I survey a lot of folks that have invested in printers, they never should have had it in the first place, right? And so they haven't made a return on it, but also there's shops that are thriving with it, right? But they knew exactly what that product would deliver for them, invested in the right printer for exactly the fabrics that they wanted to do in their workflow. So there are great solutions out there and everything, but I would just say make sure you really think deeply about what your business is going to look like and make sure that's going to feed into it.
And definitely, so whatever you have right now is you want to invest on what your customers are asking you for consistently. Start with outsourcing. You outsource it enough. Same thing I said about the transfers. You look at your bill to outsourcing. If you're using a DTG company, man, I'm sending a lot of money out. You know, I can put this on a payment. Do I want to even incur the headache that's going to come with running this new operation or new system that I have going on? So these are all things that we have to pay close attention to in our individual businesses to figure out what's for you. Me personally, I know I want to spend time with my family and my kids, and I want to travel. So owning one of these machines and going on the road for 10 days is probably not the best thing, because I don't know what I'm going to come home to and if I'm not going to be able to boot it back up. So that means for me in my shop, I need systems that, you know, are going to clean themselves. They're going to do all of this stuff and do it at a low cost, right? And so that I'm able to just keep operating when I'm available to run the machine. I know we had a question right there.
The one, I'm just going to follow up on this first. The one machine I would spend money on when I had it is a good transfer machine, right? Which would be control the temperature, control the time, stays flat, the pressure is accurate. I would say that seems worth it, right?
No, undoubtedly, the best you can afford.
And you're never going to not use that piece of machinery.
Yep, and I want to add two more to your list, right? And I think this is critical, is what can I print with it, right? Time, temperature, and pressure, must-haves. They must be accurate to get durability and accuracy, but what types of items can I load? As we just demonstrated through the slides or the sandals, and the items that we can print like bags and jackets, they have a lot of bulk. So getting that pressure to be accurate requires getting that item flat. So when you're looking at heat presses, make sure that you can load a good assortment of products that you want to decorate, so you actually have a lot of opportunities to be able to sell maybe products that Amazon isn't offering, right? And so we can find a space when we have versatility in our equipment.
Right. I'll plug his hat press. That's great for hats too, without making a crease on them. The one with the silicone. What's that called?
The 360 IQ. We gave one away last night.
Oh, damn. I would have liked it. Could use another one. You had a question? Embroidery
Patches.
transfers. Do they exist?
Yeah, so embroidered patches. So one big leap forward that we've seen in heat presses is heating from underneath as well as on top. So patches have been on the market for a long time, but most people know that they won't last as long unless you sew through them and embroider them on. Well, today where we sit, that's a misconception because now we have technology that can heat from underneath to get to these embroidered patches. And so you've seen a lot of new patch products come to market because they can now be heat applied accurately. And so we have embroidered patches. We even have puff embroidered patches that have the rise.
They used to press flat. It didn't really work.
Right, yeah, you had to put so much time and so much temperature and so
yeah.
much heat.
Yeah.
You're just killing it. Leather patches. I mean, there's a million choices that you can feed through your heat printing equipment.
And the bottom heat also keeps you from scorching things because you can scorch the inside and no one cares. So it's a great tool. Good question. All right, so the question, that's a good question. So how do I know that a transfer is bad?
So the reality is the only way to truly know is to press a test application and throw it through the wash cycle on the intended fabric that you're going to decorate. But I think there's a high probability that the equipment or the transfer manufacturers just don't want to be on the line for more than a year or 18 months after you buy it, because I've seen transfers that have been in large factories. Actually, we locker stock some transfers on big numbering programs that sometimes the slow movers sit there for many years, but we know they're stored in the proper conditions, and that's item number one. But I would say testing it, especially if you've had it out in the garage or something where you don't know, is always the best recommendation.
What was the question again?
So a specific transfer formula called Goof Proof, yeah, that can last for many years if stored correctly.
Yeah, washing machine. I'll tell you, if you're a printer, transfers, whatever, it's the only real way to test something, see if it works. We got a washing machine in our shop. Other questions? All right. How about a hand for Josh and Stan? Good job, you guys. This ends the shop talks. I want to thank my sponsors, Lane 7, Omniprint, Source 1, NASDAR, Hirsch Solutions, Los Angeles Apparel, and Alpha Broder and Impressions Show. If you can, buy a poster, Save Lucy, the elephant, which is a cool Atlantic City landmark. Buy a Ukraine shirt. We're donating nearly every penny to Ukrainian humanitarian aid. And thank you for coming.